Today is Thursday, October 20th. We'll tell you what's behind some of those political ads you've been seeing. Spending on this year's midterms is on track to set a record. And what it means that Russian President Putin has declared martial law. Also, the FDA has authorized a new option for a COVID-19 booster, how it's different, and who's eligible. Plus, why health officials want to pull a certain pregnancy drug off the market. What to know about the different types of dates on our food labels. And when you can see a light show in the sky this week. Those stories and even more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, a new report says spending on the midterm elections, now less than 3 weeks away, is on track to set a record. A D.C. group that tracks money in politics called Open Secrets says $7 billion will be spent this year. And we're not talking about money spent on races for the U.S. House or Senate. This is just for people running for governor or state legislature, along with ballot measures. The $7 billion tops the previous record of more than $6.5 billion spent during the 2018 midterms. As far as where all this money is coming from, a lot of it is through fundraising, though some of it is also candidates self-funding and writing blank checks to themselves. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, for example, supplied more than $130 million of his own money to his campaign. Overall, Democrats have outraised Republicans when it comes to races for governor by almost $300 million. But some of the bigger name Republicans have gotten much more money than their Democratic counterparts. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis set a record for how much money his campaign has, almost $200 million. That's more than 7 times what his opponent has. Experts say one of the biggest factors for why so much money is being spent is how polarized the parties and the candidates have become. Russian President Vladimir Putin is testing the limits of his power in both Ukraine and Russia. Starting today, martial law will be implemented in 4 areas inside Ukraine that Russia illegally occupied last month. And that means soldiers and other Russian officials in those areas in eastern and southern Ukraine can impose strict control over the Ukrainians living there, as well as arrest or detain people for whatever reason. But what else it might mean is still unclear. It could also mean travel restrictions, a ban on public gatherings, and more censorship in not only those regions, but even across Russia. We've told you how the Russian military has had a bunch of setbacks on the ground in Ukraine and how the war is not very popular in Russia. So on top of Putin declaring martial law in some regions in Ukraine, Putin also gave more power to local governors inside Russia. Some experts on Moscow and the Kremlin think it could mean new restrictions on Russian citizens in order to quiet any opposition to the war. To be continued. Well, back in the U.S., more potential legal trouble for former President Donald Trump. A federal judge is now accusing him of lying about election fraud. The judge wrote that President Trump and his attorneys knew their claims were false when they filed a legal challenge to Georgia's election results, and then continued to, quote, tout those numbers both in court and to the public. Trump and his attorneys had claimed Georgia election officials had improperly counted 10,000 votes when they in fact had not, so that legal challenge was tossed out. But now it's being brought up again as part of a lawsuit dealing with a former Trump attorney named John Eastman. Eastman was ordered by the January 6th House Committee to turn over certain emails. But he filed a lawsuit saying he shouldn't have to, arguing those emails are protected by attorney-client privilege. Well, now this federal judge overseeing that lawsuit and reviewing the emails says 8 of the hundreds of emails must be given to the committee and appear to be evidence of a possible crime. The former president, Eastman, and the January 6th committee have not yet commented on the judge's ruling. A big increase in the number of Americans who died from pregnancy or childbirth complications last year is now being linked to COVID-19. A new report from the nonpartisan Government Accountability Office found pregnancy-related deaths spiked nearly 80% between 2018 and 2021. And it says COVID-19 was a factor in a quarter of the deaths reported last year. The report cited the extra health risks that pregnant women face because of COVID. But there were some other factors to blame as well, such as staffing shortages and extra restrictions that made it harder for expecting mothers to get the in-person health care they needed. Some lawmakers and advocacy groups are calling for solutions ASAP. Well, there's now another option for your COVID-19 booster shot. The FDA and CDC have signed off on the Novavax Booster. But unlike Pfizer and Moderna boosters, this one from Novavax was made to only target the original strain of the virus, not the new Omicron variant as well. although the drug maker says it still causes an immune response to help protect against Omicron. It's an option for any American adults 18 and older who want it and got their initial vaccine series at least 6 months ago. You may remember that U.S. health officials authorized Novavax over the summer as an option for those first 2 vaccine doses, but you can now get the Novavax third shot or booster as well. It's especially meant for those who can't or don't want to get either the Moderna or Pfizer vaccines, since Novavax uses a different, more traditional vaccine technology. But yes, you can mix and match, meaning you can get this booster no matter which shots you got for the first doses. All right, we have more news still coming up, but first, let's take a quick break for our sponsor. My family's holiday season looks a little different this year because we now have a child we need to entertain. It's actually going to be a lot of fun to see him get excited and be part of the traditions. And when it comes to gifts for him and other kids in our lives, KiwiCo helps make sure we are gifting so much more than just a small box of toys. We are gifting a season of discovery, experiences with loved ones, and a holiday excitement that will last even beyond the holidays, all without having to spend a fortune. If you're not familiar, your child can get super cool, hands-on science, art, and geography projects delivered right to your door every month. Kids will be so excited to see these arrive in the mail, and you'll know you're helping to cultivate your child's natural creativity and curiosity. Plus, you won't have to scour stores and websites looking for the perfect gift. KiwiCo does all the hard legwork for you. Give awesome this holiday with KiwiCo. Get your first month free on any crate line at kiwico.com/newsworthy. That's your first month free at KIWICO, kiwico.com/newsworthy. Federal health experts in the U.S. want to see a drug meant to prevent premature births pulled off the market. The drug is called Makena, and the FDA did approve it back in 2011. It's the only one of its kind available for pregnant women who are at risk for early labor. But this week, an FDA Advisory Panel said a recent study shows it's not actually effective in preventing preterm births. They also said taking the drug brings risks for blood clots and depression. In a 14-1 vote, the committee recommended pulling Makena off the market while more research on the drug is done. The drug maker Covis Pharma pushed back and says pulling the drug will increase racial disparities for moms-to-be, since Black women are at higher risk for preterm birth. But the FDA panel says they don't believe there's any group that would benefit from the drug. So in the coming months, the FDA will decide whether or not to accept the panel's recommendation. It typically does. A new report out this week from the United Nations warns of dire health consequences around the world if people don't get up and get moving. The first of its kind report from the World Health Organization analyzes data from 194 countries. It found that over the next 8 years, 500 million people globally will get heart disease, diabetes, and suffer from obesity and other preventable diseases if they don't change their habits. The organization is calling on governments across the globe to do more to increase physical activity in their countries. They say that means scaling up policies that support people biking, walking, and participating in sports. They also recommend implementing programs for kids to get active while in school and daycare. The World Health Organization says only half the countries surveyed have had national campaigns to promote movement in the past 2 years. The report does acknowledge that the COVID pandemic stalled these types of initiatives. Officials say their goal is to increase physical activity globally by 15% over the next 8 years. 2 of the world's biggest consumer goods companies are reporting strong sales even after passing significant price increases onto customers. Procter & Gamble, which makes products like Crest toothpaste and Charmin toilet paper, raised prices by 9% in the third quarter. Nestle, the world's largest packaged food maker, raised prices by 9.5% during the same time. Nestle's CEO says they're adjusting prices to reflect inflation. And despite those price hikes, they haven't lost many customers. Nestle had its strongest 9-month sales growth in the past 14 years. And now the company is expanding further. Nestle announced it's buying Seattle's best coffee from Starbucks. The brand sells packaged coffee in grocery stores and other locations like workplaces and hotels. Coffee has been one of Nestle's best performing categories in recent years, while Starbucks wants to focus more on its stores. Well, many people in Florida will soon be able to buy marijuana products while filling up their gas tanks. Yep, Circle K announced this week it's teaming up with leading cannabis company Green Thumb Industries. The store says starting next year, there will be dispensaries at some locations. While the so-called Rise Express dispensaries will be in the same buildings as the convenience stores, they will have separate entrances. Products like gummies, vapes, and pre-rolls will be available for people holding a medical marijuana card. Well, the night sky will light up early tomorrow morning when the Orionid Meteor Shower peaks. The annual show in the sky is brought to you by Halley's Comet. Stargazers are able to see the trail of debris twice a year. Astronomers say if you're interested in catching a glimpse of the galactic light show, find an area away from city and streetlights in the hours after midnight tomorrow morning. Give your eyes around 30 minutes to fully adjust to the darkness, and you should be able to see the meteor shower create fiery streaks in the sky. NASA says this is one of the most beautiful showers of the year. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, thanks to our sponsor. The world, just like your business, is changing fast. So when you need a new hire, you have to find them ASAP. For top talent fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With virtual interviews, Indeed saves you time. You can message, schedule, and interview top talent all in one place, and no extra download is required. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why when you sponsor a job, you only pay for quality applications from resumes in the database matching your job description. Visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Okay, now back to Thing to Know Thursday. Have you pulled a yogurt out of your fridge, then noticed it's past the date listed on the container? Do you toss it immediately or assume it's probably fine? Well, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 30% of the nation's food supply is wasted at retail and consumer levels. One of the big reasons? Needlessly throwing away food because of the dates displayed on those labels. And it's no wonder. All the different labels can be confusing. The USDA says the best if used by label tells you when a product will have the best flavor, freshness, or quality. But it doesn't necessarily mean the food is unsafe or bad to eat after that date. A sell-by date is meant for the store, for sale and inventory management. Again, it doesn't indicate when food will go bad. The FDA recommends a use-by date for perishable goods like meat and dairy, since more consumers understand that, but even foods with that label can often be eaten for a little bit after the date. Experts encourage people to use their senses instead. Spoiled food will have a bad smell, flavor, or weird texture. If you do notice any of those qualities, it's best to toss that product in the trash. It is important to note that there is one major exception to all of these rules, and that is baby formula. Health experts say you should not give a baby formula that has passed the date on the sticker, even if it seems fine. All right, thank you so much for listening today. We so appreciate your support, whether that's sharing the show, leaving a review, or becoming a Newsworthy Insider. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.